Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to participate in this webinar entitled Learning and Teaching with Cases. This webinar is organized by the Research Center of ESLSCA University, Egypt. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Ilan Sayed. I'm the Executive Director of the ESLSCA University Research Center, and I'm also at ESLSCA an Associate Professor of Economics. I'm really pleased to be the moderator for today's webinar and look forward to a fruitful discussion. So before we start, a few housekeeping rules. Please note that all participants are muted by default to avoid interrupting our guest speaker during the presentation. If you are facing a technical issue with the webinar, please use the chat function that appears at the bottom right corner of your screen. Please feel free to start asking your questions to our guest speaker or providing us with your comments as of right now and throughout the webinar using also the chat function. I will be collecting your questions and there will be a Q&A session following our guest speaker's presentation. So let me share with you the agenda of today's webinar. First, there will be an introduction that aims to present the main research activities offered by the ESLSCA University Research Center. Second, our guest speaker, Dr. Marina Apaydin, will make a presentation on case teaching and writing in international business courses. Third, there will be about a 30-minute Q&A session. So let's start by introducing the Research Center of ESLSCA University and its main research activities. The Research Center was officially launched in November 2019. Its vision is to build up a real interdisciplinary research community at ESLSCA University. The mission of the Research Center is therefore to facilitate and promote interactions between our academic profiles, who are the faculty, the adjunct professors, the visiting scholars, our students, both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and the business representatives to develop all together and enhance research opportunities, academic excellence, practical solving approaches, and knowledge creation and dissemination. In that sense, the ESLSCA University Research Center proposes a series of research activities to students and or to faculty members. There are research activities proposed for each phase of the research cycle. So here on your screen, you do see the 5 main phases of the research cycle. The activities offered by the Research Center take place at each stage of this research cycle. So for example, at the very beginning of the research project that you may have, when it comes to the statement of your research question or to the formulation of your hypothesis following a review of the literature, we do offer mini seminars on research methodology. Then when it comes to research design, we do offer what we call individualized consultations. There were used to be face-to-face consultations, but they can also take place virtually without any problem. There is a new initiative that will be launched in the first semester of 2021, and that aims to focus on data collection and data analysis. We will soon be offering training courses on applied econometrics using econometric software, and most probably using SPSS and or Stata. Okay, and finally, at the very end of the research cycle, we have the dissemination of your findings. You can participate in conferences or publish your research output. We do offer mentoring. So these are few examples of the initiatives that the Research Center launched last year and that will continue in the forthcoming year. Here, I would like to share with you the beginning of a success story, the success story of Kyrilos Gamal. He is a recent ESLSCA MBA graduate, and I'm sure that he is attending today's webinar. Thanks to his amazing effort and with the support of the Research Center and also the ESLSCA editing unit, Kyrilos got his paper prepared and accepted to an international conference. He will be a virtual speaker at the 10th International Conference on Digital Transformation that is organized by the Department of Information Systems and Computers, Alexandria University. He will intervene on December 20. The study comes from his MBA dissertation. In his dissertation, Kyrilos reviews the literature on the factors that influence Egyptian university graduates to participate in freelancing platforms. So really, Kyrilos, I would like to congratulate you for this effort and for this achievement. And if you would like more info regarding the agenda of the conference, kindly contact him. He shared with us his email address. You will see it on the screen. Similarly, if you want more information about the research activities that the Research Center does offer, or even about the editing unit that we do have, feel free to contact us. You have here our 2 email addresses. These research activities refer to any type of research project that you may be willing to undertake. However, when it comes to conduct and write or to teach case studies, a very specific approach is required and specific set of activities need to be designed. This is here the aim of this webinar, to provide you with an introduction to case writing, teaching, and learning, and to have an idea about the interactive activities that can be put in place. Dr. Marina, our guest speaker, has a long-standing and proven expertise in the field. We are delighted to welcome her at ESLSCA University for this webinar. Dr. Marina is an assistant professor of strategic management at the American University in Beirut. She is also the director of Middle East and North Africa Regional Case Initiative. She has extensively published cases with her students, especially in Egypt, and I'm sure she will talk about that during her presentation. Dr. Marina has also over 20 years of professional experience in finance, business consulting, and marketing in several industries across Europe, the Middle East, and the USA. Finally, Dr. Marina is the lead author of Contemporary Management, second Middle East edition, published by McGraw-Hill. Dr. Marina, thank you very much for being with us this evening. Please, the floor is yours for about 45 minutes to an hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Helen, and dear colleagues, professors, assistant, associate, adjunct professors, dearest Dr. Nadia, I'm so glad you're here with us. I can see you on the screen. And congratulations to Helen and ESLSCA on this amazing initiative and research center. Not many universities in the region can actually share such an initiative, which is early on, launches into research, and special congratulations to Kyrillos on his ICT paper being accepted for a conference. I think it's very important to present at the conferences and share the knowledge and receiving the feedback. So without further ado, I would like to share my screen because, of course, I have a PowerPoint, and I start the PowerPoint now. I see some names that I already met before, the students, MBA students, BBA students, DBA students, all kinds of students, and all kinds of professors. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you to talk about the full circle or the case method. So today, the agenda for my talk will consist of the following parts. I'm going to talk first about the big picture, the holistic approach to case method. And I want to say a word why I'm talking about it, why I'm in front of you talking about this subject. Originally, I'm from St. Petersburg, Russia. And I studied electrical engineering, Savarikh, and things like that. So in the Russian education system, there was no cases as such. There was no such an approach. So when I moved to the United States, to UCLA, to do my MBA, I was completely shocked. It was a cultural shock to be thrown into the world of cases. And I absolutely had no idea what I'm supposed to do. And so I suffered through this process for about 2 years and graduating from UCLA, still not knowing what to do. By the time I reached my PhD at the Ivy School of Business in Canada, I learned at the Ivy School of Business that this is one of the centers, one of the world centers for case teaching and learning and publishing. And as a part of PhD, I had to write a case and teach a case and receive all kinds of certificates about case method. So as a result, I became a case expert. And when I came to the Middle East to teach first at AUC, I launched into this adventure of teaching and writing cases in the area where that was not very customary. Okay, so that's why I want to start with a life cycle approach. Then we're going to talk about the benefits for all parties, including students, including professors, including the companies about which the cases are written. And then we briefly touch on various aspects of learning with cases for students, writing cases, publishing cases. So I have a selection of slides, obviously not all the slides. This is not a workshop. I offer workshops, like 3-hour workshops on each of the subjects. But in the workshops, we actually start writing, we start teaching, so we do hands-on activity. Here, it's just an introductory lecture, an extension of lecture I presented at the Academy of International Business in Istanbul about the subject, and I'm delighted to be here at ESLSCA. I visited your campus, actually not only one campus, 2 campuses, and got to know many of people, and I felt the spirit of cooperation and friendship and intellectual challenge. So I'm very happy to be here with you and share with you these ideas. So of course, one should wonder sometimes, and I hear this opinion from some of the professors and instructors, why should we teach with cases and spend time writing it when it's very time consuming, it's very unpredictable, and it's actually much harder than just to lecture based on the slides, on the textbook slides, etc. And to that, I have several kind of points I would like to make. I think the good decisions come from experience. After experiencing certain things for a number of times, a number of years, you start having an intuition or business intuition how things should be done in business. So the problem is that experience comes from bad decisions. So in order to learn, you need to make a mistake. Because if you didn't make a mistake, you didn't learn anything. You already know it. So the experience comes from bad decisions. And it's much safer to make bad decisions in a classroom. That's why I am a proponent of investing our time as professors, as instructors, to deliver this experience to our students in the classroom, to enable them in this virtual environment, virtual as in technologically virtual, but also it's a virtual business environment, metaphorically speaking, to make decisions, bad decisions, good decisions, some kind of decisions, and see what happens after they make those decisions. So when you look at the case method as a system, you can see that in general, businesses are open to case writing idea after they explain what it means. If you walk into any business who never saw or touched any case, they have no idea what cases are. Some businesses think that cases are just reports or journal articles or Newsweek articles with some questions. They actually don't understand the nature and the purpose of case writing. Some of them contact me, like right now, a bank or not a bank, I would say a consultant, a very senior person in Lebanon, who is very close to the government and was in the government before. He contacted me, or his secretary rather contacted me to write a case about him restructuring and liquidating a certain bank on which sanctions were imposed. So what he initially thought that we will come and we'll interview him and we'll write a nice article how greatly it was done. So then we came and we explained to him that we need actually to understand what's the purpose of writing this case, in which course we're going to use it. And then we actually educated him about why we're writing a case. And then he said, okay, now I understand, and he changed his approach. So, but not always you meet people like that, who are understanding and ready to understand that the purpose of case writing actually is to help students learn eventually. So there is no other purpose. Also, there are able and willing case writers, faculty members, teaching assistants, research assistants, students. We have a lot of resources who are very motivated and who are very interested in producing and being creative, because case writing is a creative process. And we have some very good some very good writers. And also within the center that Dr. Helen talked about, you also have writing help, as I understand. So writing is not a problem. The professional English editors, I think, would be available right within the center. We also, I think we have able and willing case instructors. Maybe those instructors who had previous experience in business, they also would like to bring some of their previous experience into the classroom. And we have able and willing case students, willing students who are actually interested in a challenge of writing a case. So we have everything. We just need to have a project champion. So no project actually starts by force. In my personal opinion, I don't like to start any project by force. I'd like to have a project champion, and this project champion organizes everything. And at the moment, for example, in Lebanon, where I left maybe a dozen of students, they're working on several projects, including the case that I mentioned about liquidation of a bank under sanctions, completely managed by students themselves, with reporting to me and some supervision remotely. So without a project champion, there would be no project, basically. Somebody has to take a lead and organize, and actually it shows the leadership skill within this person. And sometimes it needs funding. Why do you need funding? Mostly you need funding in case you don't have professional English editors. So since you already have at ESLSCA, you have editing center, so probably you don't need this funding. Other than that, I assure you, there will be enough students and instructors, adjunct faculty, interested in creative activities, interested in leaving something behind them to put their name on. So to be proud of putting their name on something of a value for the future generation, because we are all in education, because we want to live a better world after we go, right? So we want our new generation to be better than us. We want our new generation to change the world to be a better place. So I'm sure there are enough people around this room, among, I think, now 46 or 40 plus, that can fill some of the roles that I'm mentioning on the slide. So what you see here on the slide is a total system, case method as a total system, holistic approach to case method. So what's the life cycle approach? The life cycle, it's a life cycle of a case. So of course, everything starts with getting the cases. You can get them from usual depositories. For professors, access to cases is free. You don't pay anything. They check that you're a professor, and then they give you the access. So you find cases based on keywords, and you find with cases teaching notes, and you try to teach case or two in your class. Of course, you don't have to teach 10 cases, as I once did. After my PhD, or while I was still in my PhD, very inspired by the case method, I went to China and Turkey as an internship in my PhD program. They sent us to China and Turkey. To Turkey, I went myself, in fact. And I thought, executives can tolerate the pressure, and I brought with me 10 or 12 cases for a course of 12 weeks. Of course, everybody suffered, and I suffered myself, because for me it was also too much. So I suggest to start step by step. So you teach cases 1, 2, 3. Doesn't need to be 10. You train students to write cases. Then students write cases and publish cases, and then they help training other students to solve cases, and then continuing teaching the cases. So this is the life cycle approach to case method. In this process, there are benefits for all parties. Student solvers acquire practical knowledge that they wouldn't have. For example, about particular industries, such as, for example, if you study airline industries, there is a lot of specificity about the industry that you need to read a special case just about the industry. The idea that industry has hubs, the big airlines have hubs, and how it influences the business model and things like that. Student writers, they have definitely improved employment perspectives, and even better perspectives towards their masters and high-level degrees like PhDs. If they wrote a case, they can showcase it on their application, and if it's published in a reputable publisher, so they can actually provide a link. So definitely it improves their employment perspectives. The companies, I'm calling them focal companies, because these are the companies on which we have focus. These are the companies about which we write. They have access to best students and free research. It might help them. I'll talk more about it in a specific case in Egypt, what happened with Sweden when we start writing cases about them. And instructors eventually get better student evaluations, because the class becomes more interactive. They have case authorship. In some universities, case authorship is considered as scholarship of practice. It's not academic contribution, it's a scholarship of practice. It's a collection of material based on which you can do a qualitative research paper. 4 cases is enough according to the source. It also can lend you some consulting opportunities with focal companies once you write a case about them. And generally, you have an intrinsic satisfaction from seeing the students succeed. So in this life cycle process, there are benefits for everybody in this equation. When you learn with cases, I'd like to start talking about learning with cases with this Chinese proverb, which sounds like this. Actually, I have no idea how it sounds, but one of the Chinese students wrote it for me, so I trust him. It looks to me like a lot of letters Z running around. But in reality, this is what it means. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. So cases enable doing in a classroom. And this leads to so-called integrated learning. According to the learning theories, we as humans, we learn in 2 ways. One way to learn is cognitive change. So we read textbooks, articles, journals, materials, and we process it with our brain, we establish more associative connections between brain cells, and this is how we learn. But it only stays within the brain that we have. On the other hand, if you are a young entrepreneur and you don't have a degree, maybe you're working in the family business, you learn it behavior. So you observe how your father, uncle, mother do a particular business, and you try to repeat, and you're learning by doing. So this is a different part of the equation. Neither of this learning actually enables complete integrated absorption of the material and skills. In order to have both, you need to start by cognitive learning, reading, increasing your awareness, and then practicing. The problem with previous education, especially in our region here, it was heavily based on memorization. And memorization, you have information in, then you have exams, and then information out because you forget. So it's very important to practice what you learn, and practicing sometimes can be just raising your hand and answering a question, verbalizing your thoughts. And we all know when you verbalize what you say, you understand it better. So cases provide you the context for integrated learning. Moreover, according to research about how much people remember, you can see from this sequence, the first three are just 5 senses. You read, you hear, you see. Then you combine the see and hearing, you get up to 50%. And then you say what you discuss with others, you probably remember more. And what you did, you remember even more. But you remember almost everything that you teach to each other. So those of you who have ever been tutors, especially subjects that maybe not were not of your own, or maybe subjects that you didn't know much about, you will appreciate how much you learn by teaching others. The funny anecdote about my life was when I actually studied, I worked in finance, as Helen mentioned. I studied international business and strategy. And then when I arrived, I landed in 2009 at the UC. They said, very good. So you studied all these great subjects. We're going to ask you to teach ethics and communication. Like, I never studied neither ethics nor communication. So I started teaching and communication on a graduate level, and afterwards they wanted me to teach communication in Arabic. So you can imagine how much I learned about communication and communication in Arabic by teaching MBA students at UC 10 years ago. So teaching with cases helps you to actually learn the material even better yourself. And in 2013, 7 years ago, I published a 3 general approach to learning anything in the textbook, which is called Leadership Learning for the Future, which starts with awareness, and then you have analysis and action. So this approach helps you to move through the cycle of learning and implementation, and then eventually don't forget so easily. Let's start with awareness. If you imagine all body of possible knowledge, there are things that you realize that you know, and you have the skill. There are things that you realize that you know, but you don't know how to do. For example, I don't know chemistry, and frankly, I don't want to know. But the majority of all information in the world is, these are things that you don't realize you don't know. So the first step is awareness. So increasing the yellow part, decreasing yellow part of the pie, and learning things that you didn't realize that you didn't know. Second step is analysis. Analyzing whether this new information is useful for you or not. If the information is not useful, you basically put it on the shelf, you shelve it. And if the information or skill is useful, then you basically do the action, which is you learn it and you practice it. So the first thing I do when I join or teach any kind of serious class of any length, whether it's 6-hour class, or whether it's 12 classes semester, I train students to solve cases. I always remember myself at UCLA, where I had no idea what cases were and had no idea what to do with them, because all my life I was just solving equations, complicated integrals and derivatives and things like that. So it's very important to train students to solve cases, because actually they don't know what we want from them. So in every class, before every class, I give a 3 to 4 hour workshop, hands-on workshop. It's a hands-on practice where we dissect the case. We learned how to do it based on Ivy methodology. It also includes some tips on speed reading and notes taking. Some of my MBA students in this room, in this virtual room, already experienced elements of that, because it was not, of course, 3 to 4 hours, because they're already mature professionals. So undergraduate students take it longer. Some of them are taking this workshop over as a course in itself. But basically, the learning of case method includes 3 stages. First stage is individual preparation. So I'm going to talk about it in a second. Individual preparation requires about 2 hours, maybe more, maybe the whole day. But learning reaches a certain point on this y-axis. Then we put students in teams. So students discuss their solutions as a team. And because of diversity of the opinion, in a matter of maybe 1 hour, their learning increases or doubles. Finally, when we bring all teams to the class, you will see that there is a large group discussion where all teams are learning best practices from each other. And these stages repeat for every case I'm teaching, okay? Especially for the first cases, very initial steps. Of course, at the end of the course in undergraduate curriculum, you can give them already the full case and tell them solve the case. In the MBA curriculum, you can, from the beginning, you can train them a little bit and give them the case directly, because they already know how to study themselves. They have the studying skills. And the short cycle process of case method is in fact a mini speed reading seminar. I actually took a speed reading course in United States, which was 5 days long. And it's included how to actually, techniques, how to actually increase the speed of your reading. But we don't have time for that. So what we do a short cycle process to help students understand how to size up any reading or a case or reading or article or chapter without actually spending 2 hours reading it word by word. This is how I used to read. Again, when I was in Russia, I was reading word by word in any language I was learning. I could not turn the page if I didn't know the meaning of every word in French or in English or in Italian. And I spent a lot of time doing it this way without actually any attempt to try to speed read. So to speed read any case or any article, you can just read the opening and ending paragraphs, ask the question, who is the decision maker, what's the problem, why it happened, when the decision should be made, and how it should be made. Then you take a quick look at the case exhibits. Usually case has several exhibits, up to 8 or 9, and review the case subtitles. Then you read the assignment questions and reflect. In this way, spending 20 minutes on the case, you can have a pretty good idea about what the case is. Long cycle process, it's also combined with the method of notes taking and mini analysis. Usually I give this as a separate seminar of 3-hour seminar about notes taking and doing mini analysis. Long cycle process of case analysis takes 2 hours and usually follows the 7 steps of algorithmic case solving process. I really sometimes students and participants think it's only for cases that we're studying. No, this is algorithm of logical decision making. Those of you who read chapter 7 in my book, in my textbook, so you will remember the 7 steps of algorithmic decision making, and this is what we're actually teaching using cases. So the case preparation chart is basically 1 page on which guides you through the case. So first, you've seen these questions on the top, short cycle process. The issues that you identified in the first and last paragraph, you have to then list them as immediate issues. And these are the issues. Understanding why the issue happened will indicate the causes of this issue. Understanding when the decision maker must act will indicate the urgency of the issue at hand. Immediate issues correspond generally to the subjects in the textbook. For example, if you are teaching marketing, then you want to teach the subject, for example, of brand equity. And any case you're going to do in marketing, there will be some issue, maybe not very low brand awareness or something like that. And then the basic issue will be brand equity, but the immediate issue will be, for example, damage to brand equity of Starbucks because of the poor service. So you see the immediate issue is case specific, whereas the basic issue is just a concept from a textbook. So, but it's important to understand why we're teaching the case, because we're teaching the case to learn the best concepts and best practices. The urgency of the issue will determine when the action should be made. So when you prepare the implementation plan. And the most urgent and important issue is the one for which you're going to create a case data analysis and cause-effect diagram. So what you see at the bottom, this is so-called fishbone or cause-effect diagram, around which you will organize the data collected through mini analysis. After you created your data analysis, in order to act on some of the bones or some of the causes of the issue at hand, you will create alternatives to eliminate these causes. So alternative 1, 2, 3, and then you'll select decision criteria. These are factors which are important for the company. And so create alternatives and then decision criteria. And then you do a simple calculation, mathematical calculation, which identifies which best alternative you can propose for the issue at hand. This will be your preferred alternative. And your preferred alternative is the one that you implement, create an implementation scale. And also, you should think about the missing information. If, of course, all cases, they have missing information. And for missing information, you need to create assumptions and state them explicitly. Just some quotes you can read on my screen. I'm not going to read them for the sake of time. These are some feedback from the students at AUB who started doing this kind of exercises, and Dr. Helen will share with you my slides. My slides will be fully available to you, so if you're interested, you can read them. And this was about learning cases, case method, and how I do it. Now let's talk about teaching with cases. So when you teach with cases, there are several issues I'm going to talk about. The case triangle, the way how you teach with cases, it's called orchestrated improvisation, how you grade contribution, so the method of grading the contributions students make during the discussion, and the interaction and the relationship between case instructors and students, and where to find cases. So both students and instructors need to be trained in case methods. And at the end of this presentation, you'll find a link to Ivy manuals. If you don't want to take a workshop, you can just read the manual and learn. Ivy offers a very extensive and intensive and expensive workshops to teach and learn with cases. So this is also a possibility. Case method is effortful. So let's not fool ourselves. This is much harder than to just pull up the slide deck from textbook and present the slide deck, but it's much more interesting. Each class will be different. No class will be the same. It requires good communication and moderation skills, and it requires good time management. Because, of course, discussions last much longer than if you just present like me doing now, trying to fit into 45 minutes, and I'm sure I can, because I'm just talking and nobody is actually interrupting me. It requires good record taking of students' contribution in class. So depending on number of students, you need a teaching assistant or two. If the class is small, like up to 30 people, one person means you can still do it. But the moment it goes over 30 people, you cannot do it. And you cannot do it at all, regardless of the number of the people, if you are doing it online. So what I learned, I'm very good at taking contribution, but up to 30 people, up to 30 students. After that, I need to have somebody doing it, because I cannot focus on my lecture and my discussion and managing discussion and at the same time taking contribution. But it's fun. Cases, it's fun for both. And students, especially young students, love debating issues. They learn how to debate. And also there is an element of surprise. They want to know what happens next. It's always unpredictable. And some of them, like myself, when I was Russian at UCLA, I was very frustrated with cases, because in cases, there is no one right answer. The trick in case teaching, that always students want to know what happened, but in fact, it doesn't matter. Whatever happened in real life, it's absolutely irrelevant to what you are teaching. You are teaching decision-making, and you are giving students an opportunity for them to take a decision. What happened in real life, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, maybe it could have been better. Of course, it's fun to know, but it's not essential. However, it helps you to keep the attention high, and the instructor, as a result, may receive higher student evaluation, because the students will feel that they're not bored in the classroom. So let's look at the case triangle. So here is your case triangle. You look at the company context, who is mentioned in the case. You have a decision issue, decision maker, and decision time. So when the decision should be made. You also write for yourself the articles or chapters you want to assign, 1 to 3, and the learning objectives you want to achieve, and the discussion questions. So all of this is just one page, and then you write the course and the class, and here is your triangle. So the theory, the conceptual framework, the learning objectives, and the business situation. So this is what Ivy calls the case triangle. So for each case you will be teaching, you can prepare a simple one page with this simple information. And of course, the teaching note, which accompanies the case, tells you, the instructor, how to teach this case. But it's not a Bible, so you don't need to adhere to it. It's not a manual. You can completely trash it and do whatever you want with the case. So nobody obliges you to use the teaching note. It's only a kind of help for you to use it. And okay, so now I'm going to talk about contribution grading and orchestrated improvisation. The thing is that when the students participate, usually they have very poor listening skills, so they don't listen to each other. And you need to be there to establish some ground rules who will be talking. So you should be the director of the orchestra, and the students are your orchestra. So you tell this person talks, the other person talks, and you identify who will be talking. You also explain to them that they should build on each other's answer. There is no usefulness, like Mafish Faida, if this 2-3 people give the same answer, they will not get any points and they will not take the narrative anywhere. So they should build on each other answers to create a certain story or a certain logic. And when grading contribution, I propose something as contribution grading. So the contribution or the opinions and ideas the students express can be aligned in terms of quality and quantity. We all understand quantity. Quality, it means if the insights are major, if the readings are mentioned, if the best practices are mentioned, if there is some kind of extra analysis. So if a student makes major insights often, he or she receives 3 points in a particular class. If in the middle, major insights seldom, expected insights regularly, or often minor insights, saying, yes, we understood, or something like this, then they get 2. Finally, If there are minor insights, it's 1. Maybe somebody said something once. And of course, no participation, 0 points. So if somebody came and said nothing, it means that he or she didn't participate. So in every class, students receive these points at the end of the course. You average the points, and the 3 points maximum is your 100% grade, whether it's 5% or 10% or 15%. So this is how you convert contribution grades into percentages assigned for this part of the class. I want to share with you a typical case sequence for an international business course. So we start with Starbucks, on which we learn the case method. We do a CPC, as I explained, this one-pager. Students do in teams PowerPoints for different issues. Each team is assigned a different issue, and then we have a class discussion. Internationalization case, all of these cases are written by my Egyptian and Lebanese students. They talk about an Egyptian or Lebanese company expanding into 2 different countries. And most of these cases are hypothetical. These companies never plan to expand there, but we wrote the cases about them expanding in order to teach them international business. And these are the most popular cases in Ivy because there is a lot of teaching of international business around the world. We offer 5 cases from different industries, and the assignments usually are PowerPoints, country attractiveness, mode of entry, marketing plan, something like this. And on the top of this, as a last case, we have a very quite old case about Nestle Roundtree. It's an international merger and acquisition case, and it teaches international negotiations and some finance. This is like a full-scale sequence for, let's say, for a graduate course. If we're talking undergraduate course, just the Starbucks in one international case is plenty, because they're still in the process of learning how to do cases. At IBM MBA program, first of all, they have about 60, 70 students in a big auditorium, and they solve 2 cases per week or per class. So they do a lot of cases. I don't do this at all in our skill. And first we need to learn how to walk before we start running. And again, I'm going to leave you here with some of the comments. You can read them if you're interested. From Hind Mustafa, now in Canada, who became actually a very famous case writer in Egypt, but now she moved to Canada. We also use cases in case competition. So here's my first Lebanese students in 2012. When I moved there, they won the case competition for Deloitte. And now I'm going to talk about where to find cases. So you have 3 options. You have Harvard. Harvard is the Saks Fifth Avenue. It's very exclusive shop for cases because it has not a very large number of cases. Those cases are written by Harvard affiliated faculty. So even if I wanted, even if I have an amazing case, I couldn't publish in Harvard, and I don't need to, because I publish in Ivy. Ivy, those who lived in the United States maybe know a shop called Costco. Costco is a shop where you have quality at low prices. So Ivy, Richard Ivy School of Business, actually is the one where I publish my cases, and they have 23,000 plus cases which are peer reviewed and edited. So they are very good quality, and all of them have teaching notes. And by the way, now recently Ivy started selling its cases through Harvard because Harvard is kind of stagnating a little bit in terms of number of cases they have. And the early cases or older Harvard cases are very long, maybe 30, 40 pages. Ivy now only accepts cases for 8 pages maximum and 8 pages of exhibits. So this is a better source. You can always find them online. As professor, you can apply for a free access if they verify your identity based on your university website and your profile on your university website. You can have a free access. And finally, of course, you have a European clearinghouse. It's a Walmart of cases where there is a large quantity of them. Now, I think already 50,000 cases, but there is no peer review. So we cannot guarantee that you'll have a very high quality cases. How do you know the case of high quality? It's when you have enough rich data and when you have a very good teaching note to help you structure your teaching. So you don't need to struggle, you just read the teaching note. And if you're new, you can just follow the teaching note. You don't need to create anything yourself. Okay, final subject I'm going to talk about in the remaining minutes is case writing. So that was about teaching, and now we move to case writing. And I have an iceberg picture here for a reason, because what students see is actually the top of the iceberg. The case itself is just description of the company and the problem it has. But the case writing involves writing the teaching note itself, so the solution to the case. So the case itself requires unpublished data from the company. Of course, we all can write cases and basically publish them online ourselves without interviewing the company based on public data. But if you want to publish at Ivy, you have to use unpublished data from the company. And of course, if you use such data, you need to have a permission from the company to publish. It's a legal document which says we allow Ivy Publishing publish this case in which they talk about us. Company usually very worried about this. However, the company's sensitive information can be disguised by especially numbers, by multiplying by some random multiplier and mentioning that the data is disguised. The person's name can be also changed. And instead of, I don't know, Mustafa Ahmed Adel, you can have Amr Diab or Ahmed Khalid or some Amr Khalid or somebody else. So you can very easily create different names appropriate for the context, of course. Teaching note is the bottom of the iceberg. This is where most of your effort will be, but the company will not see the teaching note because there is no new information from the company in the teaching note. Teaching note is an academic document, written as an academic document, as a manual for the instructor, which explains how to teach the case. And teaching note, by the way, teaching note doesn't give you exact answers to all the questions. It suggests some possible answers. Teaching note is directed at educators and explains how to teach it and suggests possible solutions, but doesn't mean this should be the solutions and that's it. So the students are learning the process, not the final answer. That's the difference between the cases and the standard engineering or mathematical or physics education, where you have a concrete answer, and if you don't get this answer, then you will not get the grade. The company doesn't need to see or even get involved with teaching note because it's simply an academic document. It's like a manual. Types of cases we can write include mini cases. These are just short anecdotes, 1-3 pages, sometimes given by instructors in the class, sometimes included in the textbook, sometimes text publishers. Academic publishers contact me to provide them with short cases, and those who are studying the MBA class, studying now the contemporary management textbook, they see the examples of the short cases. Of course, they don't have any teaching notes. You can have case history. These are not decision oriented, so where you just described what happened, so there is no to do things. There are cases written from personal experience. So for example, some managers retire and they want to share the wealth of their experience. They can write it themselves, like the case about liquidation of the bank I just mentioned. Cases written from public sources. They can be without even company help. You go into public sources, and this is how my first case was written about the Turkish bank. First, I interviewed the bank as a part of my PhD program, and I wrote a 40 pages case. And then the bank said, no, we don't want you to publish it. So we removed like 1.5 pages, and the remaining was just public information, and we published the public information. Or the best ones are the interview-based cases. Interview-based cases are the ones where you go to the company, interview the decision maker, explain to him or her what the process will be, and then write a case and teaching note. The first cases that were written at AUC in 2009 actually came out of a frustration. The dean of AUC asked me to do a case writing workshop for faculty. Faculty duly attended the case writing workshop and no cases were written. And the faculty said it's too difficult, it's too hard, we don't know how to do it, it's new. And basically everybody bailed out. And then I said, okay, fine. I'm going to include the case writing in my international business course. And I included it as a final project in 2009. So these are some of the cases that were written in the period of 2009-2010. And here you see the example of Orascom Telecom, written in 2011, written by two girls in AUC. And if you read actually the first paragraph, you will be surprised how Orascom allowed to publish such a case, because it's so controversial. You know, it's about Algerian fans attacking headquarters of Orascom, and in fact, it was a problem with some data which were there hidden, etc., about the problems with accounting. And so this case is very controversial. But the trick is, anyway, everybody knew about it. And by disclosing it in the case, Orascom showed the goodwill to AUC in allowing the students to interview them and publish this case. And even better company that came up with cases was Sweden. Sweden were very generous with their time and with our students at AUC in 2009 and 10. And 3 cases were written about them, about going to countries they had no desire to go, just about different countries. And what happened is, after CVD read these cases, they decided, Spain looks pretty good. And then they went to Spain. And what happened in 2011, after the revolution in Egypt, suddenly, you know, everybody was stuck. There was no, the business went down. But because CVD went to Spain as a result of reading the report of some girls from AUC, they were okay and they had sufficient profit. And moreover, the president of CVD hired one of the girls to be his personal assistant in the whole company. So many benefits, many stories about those cases. Just final thoughts about students writing cases. Writing cases can be done by students as an alternative project. So you can either give them a project. Here's an assignment. You do a project about company going into these countries, or you can give it a case in case you have connection with the company. Of course, if you don't have a connection with the company, you cannot write a case because you cannot access it and receive a permission. You can do it differently. You can give a 3 to 4 hour workshop ending with a case plan where the students and participants already start writing the case. So by the end of workshop, there will be a case plan with titles, with the main issues, and you're ready to go for the next step. Students have to find their own leads. So you as instructor, you're not there to find leads or connections with companies. You cannot be in this business because you are an academic person, so it's not your job. If students have connections, they can write a case. Provisional release is always required. Provisional release is a moral agreement between you and the company, between the students and the company, which says basically, if we continue working on this project and you agree, you will review the text and make your corrections, and we obey by your corrections. By the way, we always have to obey by the company's corrections. Whenever the company wants to change something, we must change it. We cannot have our own mind what should be left or not. So the provisional release, it's a moral agreement between the company and you, saying that if you continue with the project, they will eventually allow you to publish it. But it's not a legal agreement. Of course, they can always bail out, but at least it's some kind of moral understanding that you will not be wasting your time. What you contribute, or what I contribute as an instructor or the case expert, I contribute the structure, the process, the guidance to students in terms of what kind of concepts using this case, because when we started, with this bank liquidation case, first I thought it will be a finance case because it's a bank, it's liquidation, and it turned out it's actually half of the case will be a leadership case, because you need to know how to deal with people, how to deal with employees, not to fire them, what kind of packages to give them, not to offend them. Otherwise, they will come and stage a protest or something like this. So you provide this academic guidance to the case writers. Here's an example of a girl from AUC 2009, Maha Ishaq. Actually, my MBA students are familiar with her. This is Maha. She was an undergraduate student at AUC. She wrote the first LCVD case. It was published by Pearson Publishing. She was one of co-authors hired by CWD. No, sorry, it was not her. It was another girl. And CWD expanded to Spain and avoided crisis. And Maha trained other students on case writing and became international speaker on case writing, was invited to multiple conferences, trained other people how to write case writing, and has been a major case writer in the past 10 years in Egypt. And here's some feedback from Maha. So I'm not going to read it, leave it for you if you want to go through the slide. This is my other hero, Hind Mustafa. Hind Mustafa was an MBA student in my first cohort, 2009. She took a communication course and she never spoke in the class because she is such an introvert, but she's very good in writing. And by the way, at that time, she was 27 and she was a mother of 3 young children at that time. And she wrote a case, Olympic Group acquisition of Ideal, and edited and published numerous cases. The whole Azza Fahmy series, written by undergraduate students. She published in Ivy, in McGraw-Hill. She was nominated for the Best Paper Award at the conference in AIB MENA in Cairo in 2013. So this is my hero, Hind Mustafa. She's now in Canada. And this is an example of a case which becomes real. So after Hind wrote this case, a student in Lebanon solved the case and went to Egypt by herself alone with her presentation and asked Azza Fahmy for a meeting and presented her case to Azza Fahmy, how to expand to France, and then got a job offer from Azza Fahmy. So that was a Lebanese student. This is a Lebanese student, Rami Jabado, who started writing a case as a part of his MBA program. It was a project inside the 3 weeks MBA program. His family owns a wood business, and he wrote a case about them expanding to Saudi Arabia, where they were planning to expand, and expanding to China, where they were not planning to expand, to have 2 opposite cases. So what happened is the case was translated into Chinese. 2-3 years later, Rami was inundated with contacts and emails and telephone calls telling him, please come to China. We want your wood. So you never know where the case will take you, but that's the story of Rami Jabado from Jabwood International, who afterwards went to Erbil to start operations and didn't go to China at that. And the final kind of example is including cases in textbook. The contemporary management textbook, the one some of you are using in your class, some chapters or many chapters, was edited by me in terms of content, and it was written in terms of cases, mini cases by the students. So I wrote the theory and the students provided me, did the research and wrote cases. And my condition to be the editor of this book was for the editor, for the publisher to publish not only the name of the students, but also their full profiles and pictures and stories. So you will find in this textbook a small vignette about each of the students who wrote the case. And you see a couple of them from Egypt, a few of them from Lebanon, and one girl from Jordan. And of course, this whole project had, on the right-hand side, you had a leader who managed this whole process. And so now you can imagine that these students, they were all undergraduate students, they will be quoted or seen by students like them, who are using this book. So they wrote stories about Azza Fahmi again, about Dubai company, about Algerian corruption, about Arabian Barbie, many stories. So that's why this book was so successful in the Middle East, because it has a fully original content, very fresh, very new, written by young minds like these ones. And since then, since I started this adventure in 2010, 10 years passed, we have more than dozens of cases published with students in various outlets, Ivy Publishing, even in the peer-reviewed journals, in Pearson Publishing, McGraw-Hill's, and different other outlets. So you can always find those cases about Egypt, about Lebanon, mostly Egypt and Lebanon. These are the two countries I'm covering at the moment. Maybe going somewhere, maybe one random case about Armenia and Turkey and Romania, but generally it's Egypt and Lebanon. And these are your resources that I mentioned. This is a set of 3 books, Teaching with Cases, Learning with Cases. This one is for students, and Writing Cases. They can be acquired from the Ivy Cases website, or you can reach me through my website at the faculty. Actually, it's I'm sorry, this is an old link to AUC website. So you can find me on academia in academia.edu. Okay, and generally Google me and you'll find me. And thank you very much for your attention. I think it was 55 minutes, so not 45 and not so. And I think
timing.
I will open it for questions. Please, Helen, I'm all ears.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Marina, for this valuable presentation. And perfect timing, 55 minutes, we couldn't do better than that. Really interesting, holistic, I would say, case method that you presented, and also multi-level, since you include all the parties that are involved, the students, the instructors, and the businesses. So this is time now to give the floor to the participants. We already got one question, so that comes from Sad. Dr. Marina, how can we evaluate the student case analysis? Is there a specific criteria or model when we choose the case study? So this is the question that comes from Sad.
Sad, thank you very much for your question. So when we evaluate the case analysis, I just bring you back. That's an excellent question, because actually I didn't talk about it. So the case analysis is not evaluated based on the class contribution. Class contribution is a different story. So when you evaluate case analysis, what I do, I use this case preparation chart. Each part of the case preparation chart should be done correctly, and it should be complete. For example, if you take a long cycle process, part A, if the students put anything about Starbucks in basic issues, this is wrong, because basic issues are general issues from textbook. Okay, so this will be a wrong way of completing it. If the students don't put enough data or numbers, and the case has a lot of data, that will be a minus point. So you assign different weights to this parts of the long cycle process. Usually I don't grade short cycle process. I assign different weights. Most of the weights goes to case data analysis, because it's very effortful, and alternative table. And then if it's done incorrectly in any part of it, then they lose their grade. Another 1% always goes to logic. If this logic, as I explained here, is not followed, then they lose some points. So usually they lose half point for poor logic. For example, how logic can be poor? If let's say, if they decided that the most urgent and important issue is quality, but they make data case analysis about brand, this is a broken logic, because they just said, we want to solve the issue of quality, but then they start doing case analysis for brand. Or if alternatives they generate don't solve the issue, then it's another breaking of logic. Okay. And second question, Helen, can you please help me? What was the second question? I forgot.
Yes. Is there a specific criteria or module when we choose the case study?
When you choose the case study, you first of all, you wanted to cover the keywords or the concepts, these basic issues. They will be listed like this. So you want, for example, you are teaching marketing, you want to cover 4 Ps. You want to cover brand equity. If you teach international business, you want to cover mode of entry. So you put this as keywords in the search field, and it and maybe you have your favorite industry. So you can actually be very specific about types of cases you're looking for, and then you just filter through the 40,000 cases at Ivy, and it will give you the exact cases you want. And as an instructor, you'll be able to access them and read them and make a decision if this case is good for you or no.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have 3 other questions that did appear in the chat. The first one comes from Moshira. Can we make a big case study and look at it from different perspectives as needed in classes, or a case is better focused on a very specific angle? It's planning, interviewing, and writing. So is the question clear for you, Dr. Marina?
I think the first part is clear.
Make a big case study. Yeah.
The first part is clear. So Starbucks is such a comprehensive case, and so sometimes I don't teach all parts of it. Starbucks talks about marketing, it talks about operations, it talks about strategy. So sometimes I skip some parts, like human resources. I don't teach human resources, so I never teach anything from Starbucks about human resources, although it has a special part about human resources. So it's like, you know, when you cut and paste as much as you want, as you need for yourself for the class. The second part of the question, I didn't quite understand.
I do believe that this is in the same philosophy. Moshira, if you want to have some additional information, please feel free to add a comment in the chat. But the main, I would say, orientation in this question was to focus on one big case study and to look it at different perspectives or not. Clear answer, thank you, says Moshira in the chat. So I have then a question from Mohammed, who is asking about the other books that you, Dr. Marina, are currently working on or willing to publish in the future.
So far I have 3 books, 2 chapters in one chapter in 2 books, like for the future about 3A theory, and one in handbook of organizational learning, and the contemporary management. This is, I'm the editor, and now I am also editor of 2 more books. One of them is about cross-cultural aspects of higher education, and the second one about UNESCO, because I was a director at UNESCO World Heritage Center. So I think write a book about cultural aspects of UNESCO in Turkey.
Thank you. I think that there was another question, but I didn't get it. I'm waiting for a clarification from Abdullah. Maybe Dr. Nadia, would you like to intervene if you have any question or comment to Dr. Marina?
Can you hear me, Helen?
Yes, we do.
Okay. At the beginning, thank you very much, Dr. Marina, for giving us this opportunity of capitalizing on your knowledge in the area of case writing and case analysis. And thanks to Dr. Elaine for moderating the session. It's very important, especially in the graduate level, to depend mainly on cases, you know, because this is real life situations, and you make it very clear that maybe you shed a lot of light on the importance of anchoring the case to specific parts of the theory and concepts that are being taught, which is something that maybe some of us miss at a certain point. You know, you give a case and you don't assign specific chapters or readings or articles to correlate with the case, and this makes the case very weak. Another issue that sometimes we face, and you are clarifying that there is no right answer, right or wrong answer to the case, but there is always the dilemma of the evaluation of the case, where students might feel that they did a great job, you know, and they deserve to get an A grade because they really exerted a lot of effort. So maybe it's the grade, the contribution grade, you know, per group, and to do it ethically and transparently, which is very important. So each member of the group, you know, because mostly cases are assigned on a team base. So each member of the group would know exactly how much did he contribute, and this makes it easier. I think that's all. I have no questions. I just appreciate your presence in Egypt. I appreciate your contribution to our undergraduate program and our MBA program and the workshop and everything, Dr. Marina, and looking forward to more collaboration in all aspects. Thank you, Dr. Ellen, for making it so, for designing such an interesting workshop. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Marina, Dr. Nadia. Dr. Marina, we still have 4 or 5 minutes to answer additional questions. I have a question from Youssef, one of our BBA students. Is asking the following: will our case studies at the BBA level be published by ESLSCA or IV?
Yusuf, thank you for your question. I know exactly who you are, and I know you in real life, and it depends on the quality of the case. So if the case is of sufficient quality, it can be published by Ivy. There is no, sky is the limit.
Okay, and we have also a DBA student called Mohammed, who has the following question: what are the major sections for a case study if it will be a DBA dissertation? So how to structure the DBA dissertation if you do conduct a case study? I think that I understood the question.
Yes, I understood the question. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer. So I think I should refer you back to your DBA coordinator or director to discuss this aspect. I'll be happy to help, but I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately.
Okay, not having an answer is already giving an answer. So yes, and I will finish with a final question from Niveen. She's asking, is there a recommended standard process to follow in solving the case study? I believe that somehow you answered this question throughout your presentation, but maybe she needs a more specific focus.
Yeah, that's the process in your screen at the moment. That's the standard algorithm of solving any case study. And there is more explanation in the materials which are listed on the last slide, and also chapter 7 in my textbook. This contemporary management talks about these 7 stages or 7 steps. But the textbook doesn't actually explain them in such a detail like Ivy manual. I also didn't have a chance, but I really want to thank Professor Nadia, that I highly respect and admire. Respect is not enough. I admire Professor Nadia for everything she's doing for the students, for the professors, for the higher education in Egypt. And I think ESLSCA is a very progressive, very agile university that moves forward very fast. And this is maybe one of the weaknesses of older universities that are very bureaucratic and cannot make fast decisions. And you are lucky to be at the university where decisions are made fast and very contemporary. And I hope it's for the benefit of the students, the researchers, the instructors. And I would even say there is a spirit of ESLSCA family here, so I'm happy to be a part of this family.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marina. There are some questions that it did appear, so we will take 2 last minutes. Okay. It took some time for the participants to raise their questions. So Rehab asks, could ESLSCA France, with the collaboration of ESLSCA Egypt, judge the case study before publishing it? So maybe I could answer this question. We have started very recently a cross-campus collaboration, not only with ESLSCA Paris, but also with ESLSCA Rabat. We didn't talk yet about our willingness to promote case studies, but of course, this is something that can be done in the near future. So last question is from Mohammed. How many cases should I learn to score the optimum learning experience?
You know, of course, one case is not enough because one case is when you are just learning how to solve cases. You can see in my international module, we have 3 cases. Why one is purely to learn, and it's a long and slow process. And others is just increasing the details. By the way, this explanation on this slide is very basic. As you go further, you have more analysis, you have more variations. Of course, the more you do, the better. But I think if you do 3 cases, it's a good start. And I would say you consider yourself already to have a decent experience in case solving.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think now this is time for us to close the Q&A session. Thank you again, Dr. Marina. Let me share the final slide. So thank you again, Dr. Marina, for your presence and your valuable contribution. As I said it, I would like also to thank the colleagues who helped us in the organization of this webinar, especially Mariam and Ahmed. The recording of the webinar will be made available on our website shortly. I think that all that is left is to thank all the participants in this webinar and to wish you a great end of the day. See you soon. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.